Imagine it's 1879. You live in a world lit by candles and gas lamps. After sundown, the streets are dark. Work stops. Danger begins. The night belongs to nobody. And then, in a small workshop in Menlo Park, New Jersey, a thin glass bulb flickers to life and stays on. This is the story of the man who did that. The man who didn't just invent a better light, he invented a better world. This is Thomas Edison. Born on February 11, 1847 in Milan, Ohio, Thomas Alva Edison was the youngest of 7 children in a modest family. There was nothing on the surface to suggest greatness. No wealthy family backing him. No prestigious school shaping him. In fact, he barely went to school at all. When a schoolmaster declared the young Edison addled, too distracted, too strange to be educated, his mother, Nancy, pulled him out of class and taught him herself. That decision may have been the most consequential act in the history of American technology. By the time Thomas Edison died in 1931, he held 1,093 United States patents, a record that still stands today. He had been called the Wizard of Menlo Park. But before all of that, he was just a curious kid in Ohio, building things nobody had ever built before. The journey began not in a laboratory, but on a railway car. At 14 years old, Edison was selling newspapers on the Grand Trunk Railway, teaching himself chemistry in the baggage car, until the day his makeshift lab caught fire and the conductor threw him off the train. That same railway would give him his greatest early break. When Edison saved the station master's young son from being struck by a runaway boxcar, the grateful father taught him telegraphy, the defining technology of the age. For 6 years, he wandered the country as a telegraph operator, from the Midwest to Canada, from the Deep South to New England. He was never just sending messages. He was studying the machines, improving them, imagining what they could be. By 1869, at just 22 years old, he made a decision that most people would have considered reckless. He quit his job. He was going to invent for a living. 2 years later, Edison had earned enough from his early inventions to do something that had never been done before in the history of human innovation. He built a factory, not for making products, but for making ideas. In 1876, on 12 acres in Menlo Park, New Jersey, Edison opened what he called his invention factory. It had machine shops, a library, a chemistry lab, and a team of talented scientists he called his muckers. Edison's promise was audacious. A minor invention every 10 days and a big thing every 6 months. This was a radical concept. Before Menlo Park, invention was the province of solitary geniuses. Edison changed all of that. He created the first industrial research laboratory, a place where discovery was a scheduled, collaborative process. Every tech company with an R&D department, Apple, Google, Microsoft, works in a model that Edison pioneered in that New Jersey workshop. Let's talk about what he actually built. In 1877, Edison unveiled the phonograph, a device that could record the human voice and play it back. Scientists refused to believe it was real. For the first time in human history, a sound could be captured and replayed. Music, voices, stories, preserved forever. 2 years later, in 1879, came the invention that would define his legacy, the incandescent light bulb. Edison didn't discover that electricity could produce light. Others had done that. What Edison did was make it practical, affordable, reliable. He tested over 6,000 different materials before finding one that lasted over 1,200 hours. But even the light bulb was only half the story. Edison designed everything, the generators, the wiring, the safety fuses. Then, in 1882, he opened Pearl Street Station in Lower Manhattan, the world's first commercial electric utility, and flipped a switch that lit up 85 buildings. And then came the movies. In 1891, Edison's laboratory developed the kinetoscope, one of the earliest motion picture devices. The global film industry, worth hundreds of billions of dollars today, traces its origins to that small building in New Jersey. Here is something most people never learn about Thomas Edison. He wasn't just an inventor. He was a brilliant, sometimes ruthless businessman. Edison understood that an invention that nobody can buy is not an invention. It's a prototype. It's nothing. He founded companies to commercialize every major breakthrough. His Edison Electric Light Company became the seed of General Electric, one of the largest corporations in history. He was a master of what we would now call market positioning. He also understood the power of himself as a brand. By the time he was 30, he was the most famous man in America. He wasn't without his flaws. His war against Nikola Tesla and George Westinghouse over alternating current, which Edison opposed, was bitter, and ultimately he was wrong. AC current won. But even in that defeat, Edison's electrification blueprint shaped the grid that powers your home today. He was never just the man who had the idea. He was the man who made the idea matter. Let me tell you about the night Edison's factory burned down. It was December 1914. Edison was 67 years old. A fire consumed 13 buildings, destroying phonograph records, irreplaceable equipment, years of work. The damage was estimated at $1.5 million. His son Charles watched his father survey the destruction and feared the worst. Edison turned to him, and with a kind of terrible serenity, he said, "Thank goodness all our mistakes are burned up. Now we can start fresh." Within 3 weeks, he was manufacturing again, using the most modern equipment available. He had tried over 10,000 different approaches to the storage battery before finding one that worked. When a friend told him he was sorry about all those failures, Edison said, "I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This was not a pose. This was a philosophy. Every dead end eliminated was progress. Every mistake was data. The greatest American inventor was, above all else, a man who never once allowed failure to become an identity. Thomas Edison died on October 18, 1931, at the age of 84. At his memorial, President Herbert Hoover asked Americans to turn off their electric lights for 1 minute, in tribute to the man who had given them light. A moment of darkness to honor the man who ended darkness. His legacy is almost impossible to overstate. The phonograph changed music. The electric grid changed civilization. The motion picture camera changed storytelling. The research laboratory changed the process of discovery itself. But perhaps his deepest impact was this: he proved that invention could be engineered. Before Edison, many people believed that breakthroughs were accidents. Edison demolished that idea. He showed the world that with the right team, the right tools, and enough stubbornness to keep going when everything goes wrong, human beings could deliberately build the future. Every startup, every innovation lab, every product team working late into the night, they are all, whether they know it or not, working in Thomas Edison's footsteps. So what does the life of Thomas Edison teach us? First, curiosity beats credentials. Edison had almost no formal education. But he read voraciously, experimented endlessly, and treated every question as an invitation. Second, invention is a team sport. The image of the lone genius is a myth. Menlo Park was a collaboration. Edison hired brilliant people and created systems that multiplied their talent. Third, failure is data, not defeat. Edison logged his failures as carefully as his successes. The question was never did this work, but what did I learn? That mindset is available to every one of us. And fourth, invent and commercialize. A great idea that never reaches people changes nothing. Edison understood that the market is not separate from the mission, it is the mission. Make it real. Make it available. Make it matter. We began in the dark. A world of candles and shadows where night meant danger and limitation, where the rhythm of human life was dictated by the sun. Thomas Edison changed all of that. Not because he was born special, not because the world handed him anything, but because he was curious enough to ask questions, stubborn enough to keep asking them, and brave enough to bet his whole life on the answers. The next time you flip a light switch or listen to a song or watch a film, you are living inside a world that Thomas Edison built. That's what it means to make America. Thank you for joining us for episode 1. In our next episode, we'll meet Henry Ford and explore how he took Edison's electric age and put it on wheels. Until then, stay curious.